Hey guys, it's Matt. I got an email from Rob that he'll be traveling, so I guess no free voice Sunday. We'll just post to YouTube today. As a reminder, the first time I got the strike that took me out of the channel for 7 days, the crime was hate beach, hate the beach. You know what I'm saying? I was throwing away certain trinkets, say, from the 18th century and questioning certain things, which I guess you can't do. So I was taken out of the channel for 7 days. Rob set up freevoice.io as a backup because it looked like, they were going to take me out at any time, but also he was getting tired of some of the hobo code too as a way to speak freely, say on the weekends or on Sunday. And it's been working out, but Rob created it. He did all the work from scratch. It takes a little while to do what he needs to do to load the videos. Just so you know, Rob's never taken a penny from anything Free Voice has ever collected or from the tip jar, because I'm the only one that posts to it now. It all goes back to me, just so you know. He's done all of it for me and for all of us at his own expense for, I think, almost 4 years now. So thank you, Rob. I'm sure we'll be back posting to freevoice.io next Sunday. So I'm sure most of you know what this video is, a trip down Market Street. I think it was 1906. I have questioned the legitimacy of this video in the past for several reasons. One reason being it was taken just days before the earthquake that just destroyed everything and happened to be basically, I don't know if they call it, was it 8 millimeter? The first one of the first videos of 8 millimeter just happened to be taken just days before the earthquake. We'll get into that sort of, let's just call it conspiracy some other time. I'm just showing you a bustling downtown Market Street, and if this video is questioned, then well, at some point it was bustling. I used to cross over it every single day when I lived there, 1999, 2000, 2001, 2002, and it was bustling. Every single shop was selling at least something. As you moved up Market Street, say towards City Hall or the courthouse, moved up to 6th, 7th, 8th Street, it got a little seedy. I don't know, like not smoke shops, but that sort of mom and pop. But all the shops were selling something. There wasn't much going out of business, of course, 99, 2000, 2001. And prior to that, probably back to 1910, every single storefront was basically selling something. Now, as you move down towards the Ferry Building, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th Street, this is the downtown area, the tourist area, the big hotels, the big corporations, major companies like Gap, Old Navy, Sony, or Tower Records back in the day, major brand names down towards the Ferry Building, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. But as you moved up towards City Hall, the shops were still filled. It was just smaller shops. I remember buying a hat from a local small little hat seller, sold like leather hats and rain hats and little caps and things like that. Not necessarily baseball caps, more like of your formal hat. I wanted a rain hat where the rain would just bead off of it. And that didn't sound too good, but bead off of it. And he had one, and he had the spray too, the silicone spray. So I didn't have to use my umbrella anymore in the Windy City. I just had this hat. When I walked to work, I crossed over Market Street. So all the shops were full, and they've probably been full for 100 years. And now, very appropriately, especially based on yesterday's video, the ghost cities of China, I'll give you the ghost city of San Francisco. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you downtown Market Street and the beautiful downtown district of San Francisco 2023. Yay! We'll start our tour at the beautiful San Francisco Ferry Building, and we'll walk west up Market Street, 2nd Street, 3rd, 4th, 5th, etc., up past the courthouse and City Hall. If you go another 15 blocks, that's the famous Castro District. You know the Castro District. It's the flags, the rainbow, rock huts and lifestyles. That's if you go up Market a little bit further. We're not going to walk. Don't worry. We're not going to walk that far up. So when I lived there, this is where the Gap store was and the cell phone stores, and there was big record stores. I think there was a Sony store, that PlayStation and things like that. All the major corporations had their stores, like what you would find in big malls like Jones, New York, or stuff like that, down 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. And then it get a little seedier, as I mentioned, as you'd go up, but still the storefronts were occupied. And what do we have now? Closed. Closed. Out of business, closed. Out of business, close. Oh no. In terms of what's happening to downtown San Francisco, which started, per the official narrative, the slide started 2020 with See the Me, and that's what's blamed for it today. We can see through all of that. We can see the long-term script here. This sounds arrogant, but what you and I will come up with. Again, sometimes I float the ideas. You shape my ideas via the comments, the emails I'll get, and then I'll refine my understanding of San Francisco based on floating this out and then listening to your comments, your emails, etc. Then the next time we talk about it, we'll have more to work with. Whatever our understanding ends up being will be much closer to the truth, even if we're a little wrong. We'll be much closer. I know this sounds arrogant. We'll be closer than a real estate analyst for Northern California, or a Wall Street specialist specializing in residential commercial property prices for San Francisco, Chicago, and New York, or your Aunt Ginny just barking what she thinks is happening from her old lazy boy with the holes eaten out of it. We'll be closer to the truth. You know why? Because we understand not nilk. That would sound insane to most people. We understand that everything here is not what it seems because it's part of a larger act of a play. It's part of a long-term script. We can go up to 100,000 feet and analyze the whole of what's going on, where the real estate analyst for Cushman and Wakefield will come in and say, let me tell you what the pandemic did to real estate prices and why people end up working from home, and they never went back to the commercial areas. Matt, don't you know that? Well, yeah, I know that because I can read a USA Today article. Well, fine, but that's only one part of it. You have to back up to 100,000 feet and see what is going on here as a whole. What hidden hand is shaping a long-term script? What act of the play is this? And what does the act look like 10 years from now? This is what the real estate analyst or anybody with their head up their ass would never be able to do. This is what we have learned to do. So we might be wrong, but we'll be closer. So that's the starting point for this. I don't want to speak for you. I know the old guard pretty well. I know the people that have been here. We think alike. We see this as and again, I'm sorry if I'm speaking for you. Maybe I should just say, I see this as by design, part of a long-term script. Of course, that would be insane to my friend Tony or to a real estate analyst that there's some hidden hand directing all this and they wanted all the shops to close down. Well, I'm not just saying this because I want to say it or I'm just scratching my ass. There's certain common sense elements where reality gives itself away. So even when I was there in 1999, there was it was the dot-com boom. There was tremendous talk that the real estate prices were getting so high, so out of control, not just to buy, but to rent, that the city's going to start to suffer. This was being discussed roughly 25 years ago. Okay, it's nothing new. That if anything gets more expensive, a whole group of people will be driven out. What will be the impact on restaurants, on businesses, shops, etc.? So this was always a risk. San Francisco was teetering on a thread, meaning if economic times were not extremely good, then they're kind of in for a lot of trouble because there's no room for error. For San Francisco to go on, economic times have to be, across the board, all classes, extremely strong because they're just operating on the margin, meaning the real estate prices, the rents, the taxes, the business expenses, the liquor license, the cost to pick up trash, everything is so ridiculous. If you don't have the best of times, it all crumbles. So you and me are the only ones that could see that? So you and me would be the only two in the city council of, somebody yelling, yeah, Matt, we would be the only two with common sense. Well, just go with it. We'd be the only ones at the table saying if a series of Lemony Snicket's unfortunate events unfolds here, there's no room for error in the city. Everything will start to domino down because everything across the board is so expensive. Well, look, okay, everybody knew this. Everybody involved in the mayor's office, whatever the political structure is, of course, we've known this since the dot-com boom. So then what happens? Here comes the panhandling-demic. San Francisco is known for its homeless problem. I think they're called panhandlers. I don't know. To me, it's the best hobo code we got right now. The panhandling-demic happens. Oh, that is to be blamed. See, Matt, don't you know what happened? This is the city of high tech and biotech and technology and innovation and microchips and websites. And all the workers that actually were coming into San Francisco and bringing all their lunch money in with them, they all worked from home. And Matt, don't you know? They never came back. So we have this nice convenient script to blame the panhandling-demic, which itself is part of a long-term script. Matt, how do you expect these expensive shops up and down Market Street from First Street and the Ferry Building all the way up to 10th Street, 12th, whatever, all up to the Castro District? Well, they're doing probably just fine up there. They stick to themselves. How do you expect all these shops to stay in business if all the workers are working from home and nobody came back in? There's a story at Salesforce.com just like begged their workers, would give them like lunch money. If you come back to San Francisco and come back in the office, we'll give you an extra $10. We'll give you free parking. How do you expect them all to stay in business? Well, that's a good point, except the panhandling demic itself is part of a long-term script, an act of the play number 666 of who knows how many acts and how long this play's been going on. Now, since we're the only group that can apply a degree of common sense that's left in the world, let's stop and see what would be going on as the economic numbers come in. Do you think that like these gigantic corporations that all left San Francisco, Saks Fifth Avenue, Nordstrom's, Whole Foods, these are monster companies in the state of California. Do you think they have access to the San Francisco mayor's office? Who is it? It's the president of Whole Foods. Hang up on that son of a bitch. I'm not talking to him. You think they have access to the governor's office in San Francisco? Yeah, Matt, they sit at the creepy table together. Exactly, mundo. They're all together. How would it work if the world played out like your Aunt Ginny believes it plays out? See, everybody then's working from home. Okay. And then the Nordstrom's president and Whole Foods and the Gap and Old Navy, I know that's the same company, and all these other businesses. These are major businesses, not just mom and pop shops. They'd be calling the mayor's office too, saying they would know a year and a half, 2-3 years ago, Market Street is dying. Market Street and other parts of Union Square, the Macy's closed, these major famous shopping areas in San Francisco. And by the way, the city is very reliant on tourism. I know the big tech companies are there, but at least all the hotels, all the restaurants, almost 80% reliant on tourism, at least in certain major parts of the city. The phone would be ringing off the hook saying that, we have to close up here. We can't keep these businesses open. The one just next to us, Macy's just closed. Nordstrom's just closed. Mayor's office, Sacramento, which is responsible for all of California, the governor, you need to do something here. We're in real trouble. Okay? Of course, if the world were real, that phone, there would have been a red phone, like a bat phone. Like, what was it, Commissioner Gordon called Batman. It would have been set up just for struggling retailers since roughly the early part of 2021, of course. So then what happened? Was what happened next in line with common sense? Let's decide. Maybe we'll be the only ones that can see it. We're going to pass a law that allows shoplifting up to $950 to be reclassified as a misdemeanor and not a felony. And we have the chief of police in San Francisco saying, we really don't have the resources to go after those that commit those sorts of misdemeanors. Is that something that would happen right at the critical time when all the businesses are closing? Does that make sense that they would put that through right about that time? Or maybe those conspiracy people actually have a little bit of insight. What do you think? And the Not Nilk is such an evil genius. The way they put this out was, of course, massaged and manipulated. So all the channels start running with, there's no prosecution whatsoever. You can just walk into Old Navy and stuff whatever into your bag that you want and nobody will do anything. That's essentially what's happening. However, these people started to run with it. There's actually absolutely nothing even against the law. They passed the law. Then they can come out and protect themselves, protect at least the foundation of a shaky story, and say, no, it's still against the law. You can't steal in San Francisco. So they're reiterating that. I've researched it this morning. You can't steal in San Francisco. It's just that we reclassified the theft up to $950, where then the police chief comes and he spreads the word to all his police officers that we don't have the resources and we're not getting involved in the prosecution of these what now are classified as petty misdemeanors. And he's actually set on record that we're not going to do this. Okay, it's still where the authority or the mayor's office or the Sacramento senators or congressmen can still say, well, we didn't change the law. It's still, you can't steal in California. It's still absolutely against the law. Technically it is. But if no one is even, if a police officer walks by and sees a guy stuffing sweaters and shit into a bag and even nobody's going to prosecute, then what does it matter what the law says? There's always been a decent amount of crime in San Francisco, more than you would think if you're just a tourist that come in and just do the Fisherman's Wharf and some of the touristy areas. It's not the Bronx in 1978, I'll give you that. But just personal story. Had my car, they moved me from Los Angeles to San Francisco in 1999. So I had my car in a downtown garage, gated, whatever. I only had one spot in the apartment, the high-rise apartment that my cousin and I shared. He had to do a lot more driving. I could walk to work, so he got the spot. The one time I had to bring my car into the spot in the apartment complex where it was much more open to the street, ripped out my head unit, which is the radio, ripped out all four speakers. I had a CD changer, those 6 CD changers, ripped that out. I went to open the door, like, what the hell? There was just wires, where the dash is, just wires. Well, I barely used the car because I walked to work. It was a Nissan 240 SX. I end up selling it for $5,000. Just put it up and just wanted to just unloaded it in a few days. Car drove fine, but everything else was just wires coming out. I don't want to deal with this. I don't use it anyway. I'm not going to get it fixed. I didn't do an insurance claim. Just here, some. I remember his name. His name was Ajit. Some kid from San Jose was thrilled. He's like, oh, over time I'll put my own stereo in here. Some kid named Ajit came and bought it for like $5,000. So the first day, I have my car where if anybody's looking in, you can see, there was this stereo, aftermarket stereo I put in. This is during the best of times, the dot-com boom tech era, 1999, the best of times for San Francisco. Imagine what it's like today with all these stores closed and the homeless problem that was much worse today than it was then. The theft is way up, of course. So this is such a ridiculously obvious reality giveaway right about the time where every major retail center, Market Street, Union Square, some others, teetering on permanently being defunct, out of business. Right at that time, you have a law change. I don't know if it was through Sacramento and the California Senate or San Francisco ordinance. It doesn't matter. You're going to have some sort of reclassification on shoplifting and misdemeanors up to $950. If anything were real, all the major retailers and the mom and pops would call the governor's office and say, why is this happening? Who's putting this through? We're all about to go out of business. We already have a major league shoplifting problem. We can't afford to make it easier to shoplift. Do you understand? All of San Francisco is in the balance. I mean, of course it's not. It's not in the balance because it's all part of a not-nilk plan. If anything worked just the way your textbook says when you were in school, they would say, well, wait a second, this isn't a good idea to put this through now. These retailers are really in trouble. We need to do the opposite. We need to have a show of force that shoplifters will be prosecuted. And even if that's false, that's what we have to lie and say we're going to prosecute even more. And it might not even be about protecting Old Navy, but if you, as a tourists, do they shop? Is that just me? Do tourists shop? Is that just something I came up with? The tourist in the Old Navy or whatever, they don't want to see some guy 2 feet away stuffing a bunch of stuff in a bag that smells of wine and liquor and has been sleeping outside. They don't want that as a tourist experience, so it screws the retailer. The major retailers are all at the creepy table. It screws the mom and pop shops. It screws the tourist experience. So wait a second. Who's putting this reclassification through? Okay, it would never, ever happen. I mean, we're the only ones that can see this. It's so frustrating living our lives, isn't it? It gets worse. Let's just say, then they'll come in and run their scripts. Matt, you don't understand the liberal vein that runs through the politicians of California. They're always out to do anything they can for the homeless, and it's not fair that they can't get the $150 Old Navy sweater. Fine, let's just say it has to go through this reclassification. Then at least they'd say, look, we're going to do this, but we have to keep it quiet. Okay, we don't want every homeless person in the city knowing they can walk into a store and just start stuffing stuff into a bag and the police officer's going to look the other way. At least, if anything were a bit real, 1%, they say we have to keep this quiet. If you have to do it, you have to do it. But what do? It becomes a major announcement. Of course, through the conservative outlets like Fox News and whoever replaced Rush Limbaugh and they all start talking about it. And it's a way of promoting it. It's a way of letting everybody know. It's a way of letting every homeless person and every thief know you won't be prosecuted under the guise of complaining about it via the conservative channels. Matt, you're talking about it. Come on. It's our little tiny group, and it's already all over the place. I don't think I'm adding to the problem. Okay, I really don't think so. Come on, man. But, so you have this series of impossible events playing out where if anybody was just sitting at a table, say, let's bring in the congressperson that's proposing this reclassification, or city councilman in San Francisco. Let's bring in the mayor of San Francisco, somebody represented from the governor's office, and a representative of the retail community from Nordstrom's and Whole Foods. And if anything were real, the representative of the retailers would look at the city officials and say, this city, you ever seen Escape from New York? Snake Plissken? This is what it's going to be like. We're all ready to pack our bags, and half of us have already packed our bags. If there's one more, the straw that broke the camel's back, if there's one more shoplifting straw that drops, one more thing that affects retail, we're all done. And what does that do to tourism? What does that do to the city? This cannot go through. And it would, if any degree of common sense, it would have been the end of it. It's not only not time to reclassify shoplifting, to protect Union Square, they say shoplifters, horrible tourist experience. All they had to do, it's a square, Union Square. It used to be, when I was there, it was Olive Garden over here, and you look at the old Macy's, the Drake Hotel. It was a square with a fountain in the middle. All you had to do was even if it's a false police presence, set up like a tent, a big San Francisco police tent right in the middle, where, it was very clear, any shoplifter, there's only one way out except the fire exits. And we're going to get you. I mean, just a false presence you could have knocked, but they didn't want shoplifting knocked off 20%. They wanted it to go up. This is all part of a script. And they would, for just talking about common sense things like this, your Aunt Ginny and my friend Tony would call us conspiracy people and crazy. It's very difficult for us to get through the day anymore, isn't it, guys? Living in it. I mean, it's dark enough, but when the people around us just don't even have one bit of common sense, that makes it worse. Let me spend a few minutes addressing the objections from first-grade truthers or people that could stumble upon this video, or if you ever have this conversation with anybody that you know, they would say, and I can hear them right now, they would say, your video, Matt, and the video you showed, and sensational news headlines, it makes it seem like there's no shopping. It's the whole city is going under in terms of shopping. Well, Matt, San Francisco's 20 different districts, Nob Hill, the Mission District, Golden Gate Park, all that. There's other types of retail that's popping up, Matt. That was the old ways, Market Street and Union Square. Now there's something new. Don't make it seem like it's going to become Snake Plissken and the whole thing's going to turn into the opening scenes of Escape from New York, where he lands the glider in Escape from New York. He lands the glider on the top of the South Tower World Trade Center. Don't make it seem. Look, there is other shopping, but here's the difference, guys. Here's why it makes no sense. For over 100 years, San Francisco has been internationally known, famous, not just for Fisherman's Wharf, Alcatraz, and things like that, the Golden Gate Bridge, but from the ferry building up Market Street, say, to City Hall, Union Square. There's only 4 or 5 major things in every city that it's known for internationally for 50 to 100 or more years. So wouldn't those things be protected at all costs? They would do everything they can to protect those things? Of course. And this defies common sense. Let's just use Paris as an example. If things in Paris start to keep melting down like the way they have been with the protests and the riots, and I watched the Tour for the bike race. I didn't see no protests, but maybe they took that day off. What would they protect before all else? They would protect what? The area around the Eiffel Tower, right? As in the American would be the Avenue des Champs Élysées, something like the Champs-Élysées. They would protect what Paris is known for. Somebody in a comment said the bike racers raced from dick to dick. I guess if that's what the Arc de Triomphe represents, I know that one side was the phallus, the Egyptian obelisk, and I like the way he put it. They raced dick to dick and back and forth, not 666 times, but I think 8 times around. They would protect, Paris would protect that first if there was a degree of common sense. So maybe they would do all they can do, and eventually those areas would fall. Market Street would look like it looks like today. But wouldn't they take every effort to protect what they're internationally known for? What did they do? Just the opposite. Pass a law to make it easier on shoplifters. Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. We're just those types of people, though. So when everything defies common sense, as usual, what's a long list, right, Matt? Was this the 1,000th thing that defies common sense? Well, it's not what the newspapers say. What's going on is not what the real estate analysts say. It's, here we go again. I don't know what the answer is. What's Not Nilk up to? In doing the research on the Chinese ghost cities, as I did the research, I got a good sense as to what Not Nilk was up to. Keeping people employed, keeping the Chinese population to have a stake in the game, to feel they have something to lose. This is much more difficult. Right now, I don't know. I have to just pause this, and I don't think I'm going to get to the bottom of it. I'll look to your comments, but I should be able to, studying Not Nilk for as long as I have, I should have a little tiny bit of insight as to what it's up to. As of right now, I've got to pause. I have no idea. Okay, it took a few minutes. Whenever I have no idea, always have to start at the absolute basics. So let me reiterate what's already been said here. I think all of you would agree this is the intentional destruction of famous San Francisco retail centers. And I didn't show you the newspaper articles or give you the details, but again, like Whole Foods, Nordstrom's, these Gap, all these major names have moved out or in the process of moving out. It's 10-1. I hear there's an IKEA that they're going to put on Market Street. Well, there's 10 major names like that have moved out for every one moving in. It may be 30-1 or 40-1. So this has been occurring, and you see from the video, the destruction has already taken place. We would see it as absolutely intentional. We'll start with that basic, intentional, because there's common sense things that the city, the mayor, the governor could have done to at least keep these areas alive, even if ultimately they would go down, keep them alive for 5 or 10 more years. Not only didn't they do any sort of life support, they passed ordinances and laws that make the situation much worse. And we keep focusing on the shoplifting thing. Again, I could go into the Library of Congress. I'm sure I could find 10 things that the state and the city has passed to make it more difficult on retailers. Of course, the destruction of it is by design. That we would have to agree with. It's like that scene in Gangs of New York, Bill Cutting's fire brigade or whatever. The house is burning up, and he's like, "Nobody go in, boys. They're just waiting outside." Well, you can just clearly observe they're not trying to put out the fire. In fact, in the movie, if I remember, they're robbing the house next door. They're making it worse. That's what the city and the state did. There's no sort of emergency measures to save these places. And they don't have means. There's 200 tech companies with $1 billion plus market caps within 100 miles. They have no means, no wealth to draw from. Come on. Okay, Matt, you don't have to keep saying it's on purpose. Think of your audience. We're all with you. Move on. I hear you. Feel like I'm always trying to explain to the one guy from Skokie that may stumble upon this. Guys, I don't know. 6 videos this week, so I don't have a ton of time to continue research on this or ponder. And usually research doesn't get you anywhere anyway. It's just noticing or understanding what Not Nilk tactics are. Maybe I'm a little fried. Usually we have fun with freevoice.io, a little fried by the end of the week. I don't know. For example, the first grade truther, we'll just go through some things that don't make any sense, which I keep coming back to, like a ritualistic, potentially, destruction. We're always trying to think of it in terms of common sense. If it needs to be, for whatever their occult reason is, a ritualistic destruction of Market Street, even potentially related back to the video that I showed just days before the earthquake and other old 19th century San Francisco landmarks like Union Square, a ritualistic destruction for their own occult reasons. Well, we can kind of sniff maybe that's what they're up to. We'll never understand their creepy reasoning. So sometimes if you're over in this convention hall where we are now trying to figure out, like from a common sense perspective, sometimes that's not the answer at all. For example, first grade truthers would yell out, Matt, they want to destroy all retail and in favor of buying online and Amazon. Well, that doesn't fly. It really doesn't. They could have completely wiped out retail at this point very, very easily. You don't need a panhandling demic induced destruction of the major San Francisco downtown shopping districts in basically one city. I think Philly's still okay, or Chicago may still be. Maybe this will follow in other cities, but you don't need to do this just to a small, tiny part of San Francisco as your opening battle to destroy retail. You want to destroy retail? Here, we can do it in 5 minutes. Retail could have been completely destroyed 5 years ago, maybe even 8 to 10 years ago. Sit down at the table with Jeff Bezos. Jeff, you're already cheaper than the retail stores, right? Jeff Bezos says, I'm cheaper. Yeah, I don't have to have the same storefronts, the same taxes, the same real estate taxes. I have 1/10 the employees. So we're going to make it so you're not just 15% cheaper or 20% cheaper than the storefronts. We're going to make you 40% cheaper than the storefronts. So then Bezos says back to the not Nilk masters, well, I can't afford that. We'll see what you're going to do, Bezos. Where's Melvin? Is he with you? You're going to calculate how much you're losing by this artificial, we'll just call it dumping, like the Chinese overproduction and dumping of steel. You're going to just tell us that you would have made $400 million more that day or that week, and we'll just send you the money. There you go. So you're going to now be 40 to 50% cheaper than retailers. You're in the few things you don't sell on Amazon, you're going to sell. You're going to sell colonoscopies and cars and everything. And I mean, just a subsidized, not Nilk subsidization. I don't even know what that is, of Amazon. You could put you could put 90% of retail out of business 5 years ago. And then, Matt, people would catch on. No, they wouldn't, because Bezos would have a press conference and say, we're now so good with our logistics and we're so perfect in terms of our just-in-time systems, we're actually able to beat the storefronts and the retailers by 50% because of the way we do business online is so much cheaper. We're getting cheaper and cheaper, and they're getting more and more expensive. You don't think your Aunt Ginny and my friend Tony would lap that up as being real when it's a simple not Nilk subsidy? Anyway, you don't need to do this little bullshit on 5 blocks in San Francisco to destroy retail. It appears because I have no answer here. So I just keep thinking, well, maybe it's like if it's an occult ritual, literally going back to the old black and white veteran. Why I keep saying that, then who knows why they have to do this? Somebody else might be screaming, well, Matt, where California goes, then the rest of the world follows. They're going to repeat this in downtown Philadelphia, Chicago. Maybe they will. I don't know. I'm at this point, I'm a little fried. I'll look to your comments. And if anybody's saying, well, Matt, it was unsustainable, it would have gone down anyway. I hear you. It was unsustainable. The San Francisco ridiculous taxes and fees and, everything, of course. But with these ridiculous laws of which we over-focused on the shoplifting law, they facilitated it. It was a catalyst. They expedited what they wanted. That is clear. I mean, make sure you keep that in mind if you come up with any ideas for the comments. Guys, one last thing I'm adding to the back end. As I was putting everything together, I noticed these barriers around, around the trees. Every single tree from this guy's, and I will link to this guy's video. I showed his channel in what I showed you. You get it. There's really not much more there. You get a sense. But if you want to watch his whole stroll down Market Street, I will link to the specific video. Every tree that I saw had these barriers, the mesh netting. Guys, I think... I might be missing something, but the homeless problem, I think to keep the homeless from number oneing and number twoing, I can't come up with any other reason. All the way, his whole walk, every single tree has this, and these barricades are around everything. I think you understand how many thousands and thousands of homeless there are when you go to San Francisco. It was bad when I was there. Oh gosh, my timing is in the 33 minutes, so I've got to keep this going. God forbid I get some Yahoo comment about the timing of the video. When I was there, I can't even tell you what I saw. And the homeless problem is, I don't know, 5 to 10 times worse than when I lived there. I'm pretty sure that's what, that's what these barricades or these barriers are for. Guys, it's just unbelievable. It is unbelievable what we notice and witness. And no, there'd be no possible way to deal with this problem if you're the, multi-billion dollar city and state of San Francisco and Sacramento, California. Just have to make it an absolute hell for people. And the tourists, why would any tourist ever go back? Um, they want the whole, in a way, they want the whole thing to implode. Welcome, Snake Plissken. Thanks for listening.